Welcome, Tommy.
Welcome.
It's great to have you here to talk to us about Fairfield Rugby.
It's nice to be here.
Please introduce yourself and tell us the year you graduated and also the position you played on the rugby team.
I'm Tom Damato. I graduated in 1973. I do have recurring nightmares that I didn't graduate, but I did graduate in 1973. And I played fly half. Most of the time I did play inside center. I would play with Chris Galvin. When he played fly half, sometimes I would be the inside center and Pete Ferraro would be the outside center, that sort of thing.
What was your first impression of Fairfield Rugby, and actually how did you get interested in playing rugby at Fairfield?
When we started the fall semester in 1969, they had all the clubs had presentations in front of the student center. And, you know, baseball team had something, this had something. So, I mean, I went out like most people did. We went out, we tried out for baseball because that's what you did when you were in high school. But I had gone by the booth or the table where Fairfield Rugby Club was, and there was a guy named Gino, whose last name escapes me right now. And he was a hooker.
Tarnowski?
Yeah, exactly. He was from St. Benedict's, I think, in Newark or something like this. And great guy. And his presentation was very simple, but very alluring to me. And basically he said this. He said, look, it's $15 to join the club. You get to drink all the beer you want on weekends, and we don't have any coaches. Well, this is 1969. This sounded like nirvana because you didn't want any authority because you were in the midst of rejecting all this authority. And that was, to me, was such a major attraction. So that, coupled with the fact that I had gone out for the baseball team, and the first day we ran 5 miles. And I had never run 5 miles in my entire life. And I didn't sign up to run cross country. I signed up to play baseball. So I thought, this is stupid. I'm just going to go play rugby. It sounds much more exciting.
How did your team do record-wise, and what kind of teams did you typically play?
We did. I thought we did extremely well. The first year when I played, I played on the C team, and we did rather well. I played with the same group of guys that I played with almost for 4 years. But I realized how good these guys were as athletes. In 1969, Fairfield went down to Princeton to play in the Ivy League tournament. So you're thinking, well, you're going down, you're playing against all the big, you know, here's Harvard and Princeton and Brown and everything. Well, they come back, this group of guys, and they had dominated the entire tournament and won. So I thought, wow, this is tremendous. So we, being taught by this group of really good players, we fared fairly well, actually. I don't think we ever had a losing season. In my memory is that we never did. So.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Practices were fairly, you know, they were fairly structured in a way. I don't think we practiced anywhere near the way they practice today. We didn't have all the little techniques and that sort of thing. But what we did do, you know, we'd always start off jogging. And again, this is something that I didn't particularly like. But we did, you know, we'd do a 2-3 mile run. And then sometimes I didn't go on that run. I would sort of cheat, and I would just do sprints back and forth on the lower field where everyone else was running around, that kind of thing. And then there would be drills. We would do typical drills. But we did what we shouldn't have done, but what we did do every day is we scrimmaged. Every day we scrimmaged. So we had a really clear sense of what we were supposed to be doing. We probably could have, you know, skipped the scrimmages because people got hurt doing those sort of things, but nonetheless, that's what we did. Yeah. But we practiced Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. And sometimes we did a walkthrough on a Friday, but basically only 3 days a week we practiced. Yeah. I think the traditional thing there for me was the fact that you spent 90 minutes maybe playing against a team, playing really hard against that team. Sometimes not the nicest exchange that went on the field. You could certainly appreciate someone's athleticism and that sort of thing. But the tradition for me that was extremely important was afterwards. the fact that now you just gotten beat up or you beat the other team up and you went out and you had a few beers and life was good. So to me, that was rather the nicer part of rugby, I thought. I think part of it was that when we played, we truly tried to play well. And I think that always made me feel really good. It made me feel good that we pushed ourselves to play the best teams that were available at the time. Did we always play our best? Not necessarily, but we really fared rather well. And that, I thought, was good. It was also very exciting for me to play with athletes that I thought were exceptional. To play with Chris or to play with Kevin Regan, who was, a phenomenal player. To play with my roommate Bob Deerin, that sort of thing. These guys were really good players. Tim McKendy was, an exceptional player, that sort of thing. So to play with those sort of people, to me, meant a lot.
Tom, is there a favorite game or a game highlight that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, there's two. Again, fall '69, the A and the B team went down to Princeton to play in the Ivy League tournament. The match secretary at that time scheduled Old Blue, who was the best team in the country, to play our first side. However, we had to send to New York our C team, which I happened to be playing on that day. And we went there to New York, and we were trounced somewhere like 90-something to whatever it was. It was a long day. And that's when a try was only 3 points. I think they changed it a year after, and the tries became 4 points. But it was brutal. And then in my senior year, we played Old Blue again, and we beat them. In fact, we beat them handily. So that was a sweet revenge, and those are the two things that stick out in my mind. A lot of other things, but those are the two games that I really liked. Yeah.
Some redemption.
Yes, exactly. So.
Tom, what would you like to see happen as far as the future of the Fairfield Rugby Club goes, including alumni support, the Friends of Fairfield Rugby? Any messages you'd like to share with current players?
I think what I like to see is the networking that is beginning to happen. I like the fact that, Kurt Schlichting sent out an email after the 45th anniversary basically saying that there was a student who was on the Fairfield Rugby Club who was unable to continue his academic career because he was short of funds. So there was a group of us, we said, look, we all got together, we'll chip in, we'll send this guy some money so he could continue. And the Friends of Fairfield Rugby Club were formed. Sort of very typical the way that things were done when I was playing ball. So I like to see that sort of thing continue where we could create an endowment, where we can create, a full network of professionals that are willing to help out, these students that are graduating. That to me would be the key thing. And hopefully to maintain just a nice, tradition in the playing of rugby. The beauty of, having a great game and then going out afterwards and, drinking a little bit, or most people's cases a lot, and, and just having a nice time. Yeah.
Any particular message for those at this end of the 50 years, the current men and women of the club?
Yeah, don't skip class. I mean, it's $50,000 a year. Please go to school.
And then play rugby.
And then play rugby. That's true. Yeah. Yes. And unfortunately, I didn't heed that advice when I was in school. So anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Well, Mike was, first of all, a fantastic guy. I did not play with him at Fairfield, but I played many years with him on the Essex rugby team. And At the same time, we were neighbors in the town of Reading for quite a few years. Mike was tenacious. We all know that. He was fearless, and he loved the game. He loved to party hard. So he was a great inspirational rugby player. And I'll go a little further before you even ask me the next question. He would do anything for anyone. And I'll give you a specific. My younger brother, Bill Deerin, who you know, wasn't doing too well in college. He wasn't exactly the greatest student in the world. He was driving my poor mother to her grave, an early grave. So I asked Mike, do me a favor, would you employ my brother Billy? He goes, yeah, sure, send him up. He put Billy on as a waiter at Touchstones. That quickly did not work. Billy didn't have really the patience to be a waiter, so he was killing Mike's business. So Mike put him behind the bar. Not only did he put him behind the bar, he let him live with him. And he helped Billy grow up from a 19-year-old to, a 24-year-old. And did it out of the goodness of his heart. He and Karen just took care of my brother, and he was just, I'll never forget him for that. Mike was a great family guy. He loved his Sundays, so he worked at restaurant business, as you well know, is a grind 'em up business, and he put in inordinate hours. But come Sunday, he loved to have a little family dinner. So we would go over to his place, and I don't know if you remember that house, but it was a big old farm in essence, and with a big wraparound porch. And he would just love to sit out there, have a few cocktails. He would toss the ball around with his son Chris, and we'd play a little softball with my son Kevin, etc. And then Mike, sometimes late in the afternoon, he could get into it. He could have a couple more cocktails, but that was his favorite day of the week. And Karen would cook some dinner, Claire would cook some dinner, and he was just a spectacular family guy.
Bob, what attracted you to the sport of rugby, and particularly Fairfield Rugby Club?
Well, Oak, I'm trying to think back. As a freshman, I was a strapping 4'11", 99 pounds when I first came to Fairfield University, and so clearly that was one of the few sports that would take in an athlete of that capability. It progressed from there to just great friendships with a lot of great guys, a lot of obviously great camaraderie that still continues to this day.
What was one of the highlights of your rugby career?
Well, I think as you well know, your lovely wife was sitting at that point in time next to my future wife, Claire. And I went over at the beginning of a rugby game, and I had had my teeth knocked out a little bit before. Pete Ferrara had replaced them, I think, several times. I think he still has an Oriental rug in his house that I've paid for. And I went across and took my teeth out prior to the game and gave them to Claire, which became our first introduction. She was duly impressed. And we went on to have two lovely children, and it was great.
What's your take on the social side of Fairfield Rugby?
I think out of any sport, the rugby community is just an outstanding social venue. Obviously, we all know about the parties. We all know about the after game and during game activities, and I just think the social side was and is equally as important, and particularly now going forward into our 50th reunion. It's made for great friendships. In my particular case, yourself, the Tommy Damatos of the world, the Petey Ferraras, the Danny Chiaras. The class of '73 was a particularly strong year, I think, and I know, and we continue to enjoy meeting each other as often as possible. I still see Bobby Piazza continually when I'm in New York, and of course my cousin Billy Conley and Melinda, and it just continues to, you know, these stories get embellished year in, year out, and now, you know, I've gotten over that 4'11", 99 pounds. Well, obviously, rugby was a teamwork thing. We were successful. I think it has definitely related into my life from there on out with business, with helping raising my children. All the things that rugby taught you, in my opinion, and I mean this with all sincerity, it taught you how to become a better person. Your teammates relied on you, you relied on your teammates, and it just, and that type of thing just worked into your education and fortunately we went on from there to all be relatively successful. So it meant a lot to me. It was a you know, character building,
Like a way of life.
A way of life. Yep, exactly.
You love to be with young people. What do you think the message you would give to today's ruggers would be?
I would, you know, that's a great question, tough question, and you can only surmise. But I would say that Mike, first of all, would say love your life. I mean, Mike got out there every day, and he loved every day when he woke up. He loved his family, and I would say he would just tell each of these young kids, okay, get out there, explore, have fun, and go at it 100%. You know, burn it at both ends, which is what he did. He burned it at both ends.
Great answer.